Okay, two great presentations, so hopefully this one will be equally good. So, what we wanted to do, I'm James, I'm from Distinction, we're a Kentico Gold partner. What we wanted to do was share some of the kind of tips and principles that we follow when doing any software project, really, not just Kentico, but some of the kind of tips that we have in-house. We're a full-service digital agency, so there's no PowerPoint, I'm afraid. It's a bit more swanky than that. Founded in 2001, offices in London and Nottingham, Kentico partner Gold partner since 2006, and that's our Twitter thing in case you want to follow us as well. If you've got any questions throughout the thing, just tweet me or whatever, and we'll hook things up. So I just wanted to summarise what the costs really are. I think we're all fairly aware of some of them. So the stats here are staggering. I'll just get them all on the screen and then we can whiz through them. So up to 62% of projects are late or over budget. I'm sure we've all been part of a failed project. I think you sometimes learn more from the failed ones than you do from the ones that go perfectly well. But some of these stats were bizarre to us. So 22 to 37% of projects that are completed are subsequently cancelled. It's after completion. It's bizarre. And the estimated cost there is a staggering 3 to 6 trillion. So why do projects fail? So several reasons really. Lack of requirements or unclear requirements. Risks unidentified, poorly managed, what have you. Scheduling, so going over deadlines, that sort of thing. Resources and staffing, kind of intrinsically linked. And then obviously poor planning. So what we're going to do is just share 10 quick lessons that we've learned over our time developing. So first one, let developers develop. That goes across the board, so let designers design, let project managers manage, let the guys do the job that they are trained to do. That certainly isn't, what we're not saying here is do not involve those people in other aspects of the project life cycle, but what we are saying is do not assign responsibility of other areas to developers or designers, so don't make a developer project manage the thing going through the process. It's wrong. And it quickly destroys their passion and the morale for the project. We think we've got some pretty good project managers at our place. And they kind of act as a protection to the developers, so they'll clean all the inquiries as they're coming in. You often get garbled stuff straight from the client, so it's that kind of intermediary translation of requirements between end client and the developer. The same is true for design, it's across the board. Links into this point as well, so keeping the team engaged. So successful projects rely on all members of the team that are working on that project buying into the project. Failed projects typically are where the developers lost interest, the designers lost interest, the project managers stressed out. So these are things that we like to work on. So rather than focusing on kind of processes and policies and all this sort of stuff, just general niceties and getting the emotive buy-in of all the team members on a project is really, really important. If you don't do this, we feel the teams start to disengage and the project soon veers off track. So. Meet for a purpose. We were told this one by quite a well-standing agency in London, one of the agencies that we work with. There's some quite amazing stats really. So a meeting for 8 people for 1 hour obviously equates to 1 hour of collected time. So how many is in this room now? There must be 50 people or so. this 15-minute chat that I'm having with you is taking up all of that collective time. So it's got to be worth it. Meet for a purpose. I don't know how many of you guys here decline meetings with clients. It probably doesn't happen very often. We do it. You know, we will say, do we need a meeting for that? Yeah. Don't be shy and do it. When you do have a meeting, a couple of really quick points there. Always have a clear agenda. Always come prepared. And only discuss the items on that agenda. And then finally, leave with actionable insights. So what was the goal of that meeting? And did you achieve that goal? If you didn't, you're going to need another meeting. And it's a waste of time. Use assumptions with care. So similar to what Jonathan mentioned earlier, where with the EMS, and it's easy to make assumptions as you go through the process. I think developers, I don't know how many's in the room here, hopefully they're all next door, but they're pretty bad at this jumping to assumptions. You cannot avoid them, and we're certainly not saying do not make assumptions, but you make assumptions with care. They are necessary. And the important thing that we say is communicate them clearly. So where you're making an assumption, just make it clear to the client that that's been assumed, unless they say otherwise. This one is really, really important. If you're like us, you're constantly looking at new tools and project management, time and billing, CRM, every tool in the book. We think the truth is that the methodology is more important than the technology. So it's, the 2 points here, it's really, really important that whatever tool you use, it could be pen and paper, it doesn't matter. But you need to know how to use them, and you need to know why you're using them. And the team needs to understand that, more importantly. So choose the right tools. We use Basecamp, we used Harvest for time and billing, both of which we find absolutely fantastic. But we're always looking. So you probably can't see into the future. I know we certainly can't. This one is more to do with estimating and quoting up front. So it's impossible to foresee all the features that are required in a project. And whilst we're not saying don't try to, what we are saying is don't be overly granular at the pre-planning and quoting stage. It's also impossible to plan too far in advance. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys maybe put together kind of project plans and say, oh, there's 10 days on this, 10 days on that. It's really guesswork. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody when those things don't actually turn out to be the right times and the right deadlines. What we tend to do is, I'll come on to the way that we use Scrum in a moment, but we'll only plan maybe for 2-3 weeks in advance. The rest of the time is kind of, we know that the features are coming and there's a backlog there, and we get to those features when we get to them, but we only plan in detail and then go to a granular level for 2-3 weeks, something like that. Anything beyond that, we don't feel like we can really do it accurately enough. The other thing as well is we don't always know how we're going to do something in advance. Jonathan mentioned again with the EMS, multilingual stuff. You know it's doable, or you hope it's doable, and you've got a fairly clear understanding of how you've done it. Maybe you've done it something similar in the past, but you maybe don't fully understand how you're going to do it. And in which case, how on earth are you estimating that? How are you guessing how long that's going to take? It's a best guess, worst case. Oh, the last one on there, that's actually quite a good one. So we also think the features should be brought into a project through the thing. So lots of people will get a statement of work, and that's the signed off statement of work, and we are going to deliver these features and nothing else, and those features will be delivered. As we go through a project, don't fight change. Really, really important. They always change. projects always change. New features do creep in, so scope does creep. All the little changes that the client thinks, oh, it's a small little change to CSS, they don't really understand necessarily all the knock-on effects of those changes. So the important thing for us is allow for these changes, and to achieve that, we use Scrum. So a lot of you may be familiar with traditional development cycles here. So waterfall is probably the most well known. So you effectively have a bundle of features here, and you go through a step-by-step waterfall approach. So through requirements, design, development, testing, and then to release. And at that point, you have a finished product. The way that we approach things is to use more of a Scrum style process. So I'll just jump back one here. So still have the same product backlog, still have the same kind of core features overall. But what we tend to do is choose a selection of those features, and for each of those individual features, we step through the processes simultaneously. So for each single feature, we jump through these processes. And this is an iterative process. So it might be that the sprint is 2 weeks or 4 weeks, what have you. But by the end of that time, there should be a complete feature which creates a minimal viable product. So that feature should be finished, and it's independent of the others, so it's not affected. So hopefully you can see from these drawings here, new features can be added into this at any stage. So they just go into the product backlog, and they get iterated through without affecting any of the others. So yeah, I'm going to be good. This is, I think Google have pushed this one quite a while back, because it's release early, release often. We used to hold back from showing anything to a client until it was 100%. Yeah, until it looked exactly how we wanted it to look, how it performed exactly how we wanted it to perform. We didn't show the client. We're completely different with that now. We'll get them involved as really early. We'll show them completely full of bugged code. The solutions that just don't work, but they're proof of concept. And it helps to identify issues early, because if the communication from the client might not be quite so strong. They may not have fully described, or we might have not fully understood their true requirement. By doing these things early and quickly, with I guess the least amount of effort up front, we're getting to a finished product much quicker. Fear silence. Hopefully it speaks for itself, but lots of people struggle to say, I need help, especially developers, and they'll dive into the code and they'll bury themselves for days without saying anything. And by the end of the week, they'll come up to the surface and kind of go, I haven't done it yet, I haven't finished. Flag things up. As part of a Scrum methodology, you have stand-ups and meetings on a regular basis, at least every day. And whether we're doing a project or not at the time, we'll always have these stand-up meetings. We tend to have 2 a day, if we can. And it's an opportunity for everyone to say what they're working on, what they're struggling with, what they've just completed, and what they've got planned. And it helps to identify as well where other resources are required from other people. So if I was working on a project and I needed some design assistance, then I could flag that up a couple of days in advance and get that sorted. So, but yeah, fear silence. And then the last one is learn from every project. We know we don't do things perfectly. I'm not sure there is a perfect way of doing every project. But the important thing is to continually learn from every project. And that is it. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
We're trying to go towards agile project management from the traditional approach, and I've bought into it, really like it and stuff, but the challenge, there's 2 challenges that we're seeing, timelines and budget, and to get to accurate measures of that. I find that we still have to go into the detail and spec things out fully, even if we then manage it from a more agile approach going forward. But how do you overcome those sort of
So yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it depends on the client as well, doesn't it? Because if you can say the ballpark is going to be in this region, maybe give a 20% variance either side. Some clients are okay with that. Some really want, maybe not fixed cost, but they want to really granular level. And I guess what would, in that scenario, what we would probably do is plan to the minimum that we could to accelerate that planning process. I guess experience shouts a lot, doesn't it, when you're talking about quoting and estimating. So if you've kind of done similar projects in the past, you can use those as a benchmark. Difficult one to answer.
Yes, difficult one.
Yeah, but push for it. It's not an easy change. I mean, we used to do the traditional stuff religiously. Prince 2, this, that, and the other documentation coming out of our ears. And, we've really streamlined from that. So. Yes, ma'am.
You know, when you have this ability where you have like a quick Scrum to get development done in a certain time frame, how do you manage like other inquiries or support that might come through from other projects?
Yeah, good question. With the Scrum methodology, you work with teams, so general ad hoc support inquiries wouldn't really go into those teams, so there'll be separate teams that work on this. I don't know if technical support can really work in a Scrum Agile way, unless it's a particular bug or something like that, and it requires resource, but yeah, we will separate those two out.